عليكم. خير خدي. بسم الله. No, you're good. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inshallah, brothers can come closer. We will start the program, inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ينادونهم ألم نكن معكم قالوا بلى ولكنكم فتنتم أنفسكم وتربصتم وارتبتم وغرتكم الأماني حتى جاء أمر الله وغركم بالله الغرور. وقد قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: لا يزال قلب الكبير شابا في اثنتين، في حب الدنيا وطول الأمل. أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Respected elders, dearest brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Continuing with the diseases of the heart and the ways that the shaitan, he perverts the hearts of mankind and he inputs within the hearts of human beings those qualities which are detested by Allah. Allah, His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the angels, they inculcate within a person good attributes, praiseworthy attributes, qualities of purity, qualities of nobility. But the dunya, the world, its people, the shayateen, the things which are promoted in the world, they're usually going to be qualities of what? Deceit, cunning, be a good salesman, be able to cheat people, right? Be able to get a buck out of someone. If you're good at that, you're the top guy. You're respected, right? And other bad things, I'm not going to mention it here. We all know what these kinds of things are. The more a person is involved in this, the more he's respected. This is a very, talented person, very accomplished individual. And what is he involved with? Nothing but rubbish. And the reason why human beings look at it this way, زَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُم. Their hearts have become blinded by the shaitan. The horrible actions that they're involved in, it has become adorned. It looks beautiful in their eyes. That cheating, it looks like it's a very great quality, right? And you'll see, hopefully you won't see this, but this is what happens in the world. People will do this. They'll cheat someone right in front of another Muslim brother. They will cheat. They will take the guy's money. And after he goes away, see how I got him? You see how I got that money out of his pocket? He will boast on such a despicable and lowly quality that you basically cheated someone, you stole from somebody. You're a thief and you're boasting about it and you're praising it as if it's something that should be looked up to. Respected listeners, this is why it's so important to understand really what are the qualities that are respected and are pure and are acknowledged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what are those qualities which are blameworthy? Respected listeners, one of those qualities which we're going to discuss tonight is false aspirations. Tulul amal. False aspirations. So as a believer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has taught the world, He's taught this ummah, that a believer should always be بين الخوف والرجاء. You should be between hope and fear. So your hope and your aspirations should not be so high that now what happens? I can get involved in the dunya, I can get involved in sins, I can do whatever I like. Allah's going to forgive me. It's all good. It's not a big deal. I don't need to protect my eyes. It's okay if I womanize. It's okay if I take drugs and alcohol here and there. Allah's going to forgive me. You have all these false aspirations. You make things up to yourself to pacify yourself, to make ourselves feel better, to console and comfort ourselves, we lie to ourselves. We make these high and false aspirations, whereas we have no proof of that. There is no proof that next week you can make tawbah. There is no proof, and there's no cemented and solidified, proof that you have that in 1 year's time, once I graduate, I'll start coming on my deen at that time. In 2 years' time, once the income starts coming, then I will focus on my deen. Right now, I just got to focus on my pockets. False aspirations. Years and years down the line, a person will think, 2 years later, I'm going to do this. 5 years later, I'm going to do this. 10 years later, I got this planned out. 15 years later, I have that planned out. Subhanallah. And amongst all of this planning, there are many people, little do they know, that 3 months down the line, Allah has written their death. They're planning for 15 years, but within 3 months, Allah has decreed what? Death is going to take place. And this topic, respected listeners, it's related to yesterday's topic. The love of wealth, the love of dunya, the love to amass. It gives a person what? False aspirations. You think you have a long life ahead of you where you can keep on amassing, keep on doing all of this, and just like the flip of a switch, okay, love of dunya gone, now let's focus on akhirah. Right? يُنَادُونَهُمْ أَلَمْ نَكُمْ مَعَكُمْ. Allah mentions in the Quran Kareem, the hypocrites, they will address the believers. And what will they say? أَلَمْ نَكُمْ مَعَكُمْ. Weren't we with you? In the world, we were together, weren't we? We used to pray side by side. We used to go to Jumu'ah together. Here and there, we would see each other in Ramadan. But no, one group is the group of believers. They believed with their hearts. And the other group, these are the hypocrites. They believed with their tongues, but deep down inside, that faith was not deep-rooted. قَالُوا بَلَا وَلَكِنَّكُمْ فَتَنْتُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ. They will say, yes, indeed, you were with us. However, you tricked yourselves. You put yourselves into temptation. وَتَرَبَّصْتُمْ. And what did you do? You were waiting for some harm to come to us. وَرُتَبْتُمْ. And you doubted. وَغَرَّتْكُمُ الْأَمَانِي. And these aspirations, these thoughts, these false hopes, what did they do to you? They deceived you. وَغَرَّكُمْ بِاللَّهِ الْغَرُورِ. And the biggest deceiver, the shaitan, he deceived you regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So think about it, brothers and sisters. The munafiqeen, this is what they will say. On the day of judgment, in the akhirah, this is their description. What led them astray? False aspirations. I can do what I want. Allah is Ghafurur Rahim. I still have time. Long life ahead of me. I got time to fix things and make amends. But subhanallah, what did the Prophet ﷺ say? Right? You shouldn't even go 2 days. You shouldn't even go 2 nights. Except that your will is written underneath your pillow. Right? Death has to be something, you're expecting it. You're ready for it. You're waiting for it. The Prophet ﷺ, he gave an example and he drew something. What did he draw? ﷺ? He drew several lines that were protruding out and one line which was closer. So the Prophet ﷺ, he explained, what is this drawing? All the lines that are protruding, they're going out of the circle, out of the square, very, very long. The closer line, that is death. And those lines which are going out, that is the aspirations of a human being. You want to eventually do this, you want to do that. Death is going to come. Right? You don't know when that's going to be. Don't make it as if, right? Ulama say, for dunya, work for dunya as if you're going to live forever. For the world, give yourself time. But when it comes to your akhirah, work for it as if this is your last day. Work for your akhirah as if today is your last day and you're going to meet Allah. How do you want to meet Him? In which condition do you take your heart to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala? Some of the companions, right, they were mentioning, we'll see you tomorrow, we'll see you. And this time he said, subhanallah, you see me tomorrow. He said, from one salah, I don't expect to see the next. Right? When I perform my fajr, I'm concerned, maybe I'm not going to see dhuhr. When I perform my dhuhr, maybe I'm not going to see asr. That's how death was always in front of them. They wouldn't let false aspirations, tackle them and take them away from their objective. So subhanAllah, one of the companions, when he heard this, he said, from Dhuhr, you are not expecting Asr, and from Asr, you're not expecting Maghrib. He says, man, you're very hopeful for a long life. You have very high aspirations. He said, when I make Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, I don't expect to live until the next Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You're talking about Dhuhr to Asr, Asr to Maghrib, one salah to the next. He said, from one salam to the other salam, I don't have any reliance. At any moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can take my life. Respected listeners, just think about it, that every day, the qabr makes an announcement. Wallahi, it's very scary when we think about this. Every day, the qabr makes an announcement and the grave calls us. The grave addresses us, makes an announcement that I am Baytul Wahsha wa Baytul Dood. I am the house of solitude. I am the house of worms, the house of insects. Soon, you're going to come into my hospitality. You're going to come into my care. Allahu Akbar. Imagine, every day the grave calls us, but what's on our minds? Gonna live another 20 years, gonna live another 30 years. And subhanAllah, brothers and sisters, if we look at the norms of the world today, death doesn't come to old people. Death comes to young people. Right? This is the norm that we see. Some people, unexpected heart attack. Suddenly a person gets sick. Suddenly something happens in life. And all those aspirations that a person had, you can't fulfill that anymore. With your impairments, with your limited health and all of these things. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, Shababika qabla haramik. Work in your youth before your time of old age. Work in your fi hayatika qabla mautik. Work in your time of life for your time of death. Right? Don't wait until it's too late. Never ever leave your matters of deen for another day. Deen requires that a person prepares for it right away. And subhanAllah, some of the narrations that the Prophet ﷺ made mention regarding false aspirations. Look at what the Prophet ﷺ said. That continuously, the heart of an old man, the heart of a senior person, will always remain young in two things. So externally, the person has aged. The person, he's hunchback. He's walking with a cane. His physical body, everything is saying, I'm old. But in his heart, two things. MashaAllah, I'm still a teenager. MashaAllah, I'm still 20 years old. What are these two things that an old person, his heart will still feel like he's a youth? حُبُّ الدُّنْيَا وَطُولُ الْأَمَلِ. Love for this world and very, very long, high, false aspirations and false hopes. The person will think, I still got a very, very, very long time. Respected listeners, this is why when we look at the Prophet ﷺ, he was very, very particular. Don't let your aspirations of this world get a grip of you. Because subhanAllah, a believer, you are either working for akhirah or you're working for dunya. These are two things, they do not come together. Right? There's a statement, it's attributed to Isa alayhi salam, where he said, لا يجتمعان في قلب مؤمن حب الدنيا وحب الآخرة. Two things, they cannot be contained at the same time in the heart of a believer. That is love of dunya and love for the akhirah. Both of them will not come together, just like in one vessel, you cannot combine water and fire. It's either going to be water or it's either going to be fire. Both of these things don't come together. And subhanAllah, look at what the Prophet ﷺ said. Man ahabba dunyahu adarra bi akhiratihi. And all of us will be able to relate to this hadith. The person who loves his dunya, what will he do? He will sacrifice his akhirah for the sake of his dunya. Right? How many people do this? Right? I got to make some money real quick. It's all right. I know it's doubtful. I know it's not a good thing. Right? How many people nowadays, I forgot to mention this yesterday, we'll just mention it now. I mentioned and I alluded, the ways of earning. How many Muslim brothers and sisters today, what is their way of earning? Gambling. Right? Before, if you wanted to gamble, you gotta get on a road trip and go to Las Vegas, right? If you wanted to gamble. You gotta go very, very far if you want to gamble. And it's hard, and people would say, it's not worth it. Go all the way there and ruin my akhirah. I'm not gonna jump in the car to send myself to the hellfire. No way. Right? And subhanallah, nowadays, you don't have to go to Las Vegas to gamble. Nowadays, where is the gambling? Right here on your phone. Right? Who's gonna win the fight? Who's gonna win the basketball game? Who's gonna win the football game? And everybody is putting bets, and they're gambling, and they're earning impermissible fire. It's not wealth. That's not money. That is not something that is of khair. That is fire of this dunya when a person is earning in this way. So subhanallah, if a person loves their dunya, they will put their akhirah in harm because of how much they love the world. وَمَنْ أَحَبَّ آخِرَتَهُ. The person who loves their akhirah, what will they do? أَضَرَّ بِدُنْيَاهُ. They will put their dunya in some little bit of harm. Because they're going to always choose their akhirah. Right? You can make more bucks on a Friday. Right? You can make more money. Work all the way till 5 p.m. But you got to miss your Jumu'ah. Right? A person who loves the akhirah, what do they say? I'm going to look for the concession. I will cut some hours off work. I will make less money. No problem. My dunya will decrease. My wealth will decrease. That's okay. But I'm not going to miss my Jumu'ah. Right? So a person who loves their akhirah, they will sacrifice some aspects of their dunya in order to fulfill the rights of the akhirah. فَآثِرُوا مَا يَبْقَى عَلَى مَا يَفْنَى. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, choose that which will remain over that which will eventually expire. Some water here. Bismillah. Hazrat Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala an, he would say, إِذَا أَمْسَيْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الصَّبَاحِ. That once you have come into the morning, or rather once you've come into the evening, don't expect that you're going to see the morning. And when a person enters the morning, you wake up, don't expect that you will make it to the evening. And he says, take from your health for the time when you will become sick, and take from your life for the time that you will eventually pass away. So subhanallah, this is why it's so important to be careful, manage our time, manage our schedules, and take this world as if at any moment we will leave this dunya. I know time is getting crunch, so I'm just picking and choosing which points to mention, inshallah, so we don't get too late, inshallah. There's a narration reported by Ibn Abi Dunya, rahimahullah ta'ala. He says that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, ألا إنه من رغب في الدنيا وطال أمله فيها. The person whose heart is excessively in love with the world. Right? Fashion, luxury, money, diamonds, cars. The heart is in love with all the things of this world. وطال أمله فيها. His expectations and desire of the dunya is very, very high. Very high aspirations of the world. When a person has this, what happens? أَعْمَى اللَّهُ قَلْبَهُ عَلَى قَدْرِ ذَلِكَ. To the extent of how much his love for the world and his false aspirations are, to that extent, Allah will blind that person's heart. So the heart will not be able to find guidance from Allah. The heart is preoccupied. Accomplish this, accomplish that, make this, make that. All of these false aspirations and false achievements that the person is looking forward to, All of that will blind the person's heart from his priority. وَمَنْ زَهِدَ فِي الدُّنْيَا. As for the one who's abstinent from the world, and he does not have false aspirations. He looks at every day like this could be my last. As for such a person, Allah will give him knowledge without him even seeking. And Allah Azza wa Jal will give this person guidance. So respected listeners, this is why never ever live in this dunya with love of world in the heart. We must look at this dunya like it's the most despicable thing, when you know what Allah has prepared for in the akhirah. And subhanallah, Hazrat Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah alayh, he said very beautifully, the most intelligent of people is the one who leaves the dunya before the dunya leaves him. The smartest and most intelligent of people is who? أَعْقَلُ النَّاسِ مَنْ تَرَكَ الدُّنْيَا قَبْلَ أَنْ تَتْرُكَهُ. Leave the dunya before the dunya leaves you hanging. Right? Because if you are stuck to the dunya and then the dunya leaves you, what's going to happen? You're going to be in trouble. You're going to be worried. You're going to be afraid. You're not going to be successful. So take the dunya out from your heart before the dunya gets rid of you. And the smartest of people is who? The one who illuminates his grave even before he resides inside of the grave. He's preparing the lanterns, he's preparing the lighting, he's preparing the cushioning, everything for his grave. وَأَرْضَى رَبَّهُ قَبْلَ أَن يَلْقَاهُ. And what does the smartest person? The one who pleases Allah before he meets Allah. So every day, my meeting is going to take place. My meeting is going to happen. How can I please Allah before I stand right in front of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala? And subhanallah, he says, successful and intelligent is that person who performs the salah with jama'ah before the salah takes place upon him. Meaning the janazah salah. And successful is he who holds himself accountable before he is held accountable himself on the Day of Judgment. This is what Hazrat Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi said. And subhanallah, we see that our pious predecessors, how much they would be concerned with their akhirah, that it's actually mentioned, many of the pious predecessors, to remind themselves of death, what would they do? One day out of the week, they would actually go to the grave. The grave is dug up 6 feet deep, and they would do i'tikaf. Right? MashaAllah, brothers are getting ready for i'tikaf here in a nice masjid. Everything is very nice. Imagine doing i'tikaf inside of a grave. They would prepare the grave and they would sit inside. They would do i'tikaf. And they would speak to themselves, speak to their grave, speak to their soul. And they would say, this is your home. This is your real life. This is your abode of permanence. The day is going to come that you're going to live here. Forget about the chandeliers at home. Forget about renovating and doing all of those things. Okay, even if you want to do that, well and good, no problem. Don't forget and neglect this true house, this grave. That's where I'm going to live for a very, very long time. So if I'm going to renovate the house of dunya, but neglect the house of the qabr, that's not a smart move. If you're going to renovate the house of dunya, also you should renovate the house of the grave, the house of the akhirah. That should also be part of a person's life. So subhanallah, some of them, they would sit in their graves, and some of them, they would take their kafan. The shroud which a deceased person is wrapped in, they would purchase their kafan from beforehand. And what would they do? They would spend time by themselves, and they would wrap themselves in the kafan. And they would look at their kafan, that subhanallah, today I'm alive and I'm wearing this shroud. The day is going to come where I will be deceased, and I'm going to be wrapped inside of this shroud. And that day can come very, very fast. أَيْنَمَا تَكُونُوا يُدْرِككُمُ الْمَوْتِ. Wherever you are, death will come to you. وَلَوْ كُنْتُمْ فِي بُرُوجٍ مُشَيَّدَةٍ. Even if you're in palaces, you're in fortresses, you're well protected, no matter where you are, death is going to come to you. Right? Nobody can run away and escape this aspect. It's neither going to come forward, neither will it proceed, neither will it be delayed. Exactly at the time, the appointed moment when a person is going to leave this world, that has already been determined by Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. And lastly, I'll mention one important point, that abstaining from dunya and not having false aspirations and high hopes and far-fetched ideas, this does not negate living happily and comfortably in the dunya. What matters is, don't let dunya come into your heart. Right? So subhanAllah, we will look at, like for example, Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. In his khilafah, there was a person, he was walking in the street and his head was all the way down and he's saying salam to people and bowing his head and putting his hand here, like showing his humility. So some people, they were like, mashallah, look how humble this guy is. The way he says salam, he's like lowering himself and showing such humility. When Umar radiallahu anhu came, guess what he did? He took the whip and he slashed this guy. He gave him a lash. And the people said, wow, this guy looks so humble. And Amirul Mu'mineen just lashed him. He said, don't put your head like this and your hand like this and showing these bodily movements of humility. Humility is inside of your heart. Stop showing off and making it seem like you're humble. So, just because a person, you're outwardly not displaying luxury, outwardly you're not displaying a lot of dunya, that doesn't mean dunya is not in your heart. And similarly, a person is dressed nice, a person, Allah has blessed them with a nice car and luxury, they didn't seek it, they're not neglecting their akhirah, but Allah gave it to them. That doesn't mean a person is a worldly person. That doesn't mean that person is bound for the hellfire. Allah gave it to them, and they're not letting it come into their heart. That's completely fine. Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi was very wealthy. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi was very wealthy. As a matter of fact, Imam Malik rahimahullah, for every dars of hadith, he would wear new clothes. I'm not talking about, fresh out of the laundry. Brand new clothing he would purchase just for the dars of hadith. The Muwatta of Imam Malik. And when he was done with the dars, he would give that garment, he would give it in sadaqah to a poor person, and for the next dars, in honor and respect for the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he would wear new garments every single time. Right? So that doesn't mean that you're a worldly person. It matters where your heart is. So subhanAllah, there's a story that's mentioned that amongst the people of the past, there was an ascetic, zahid, a person completely divorced the dunya and rough clothing, never ate good food, never slept at night, lived a very harsh lifestyle, completely abandoned the world. And in the city, there was a great alim, there was a great scholar. And all the people were talking about this great scholar. So the ascetic, he took the trip to visit the scholar and benefit from him. So when he comes, and it's a story, many of the pious ascetics, Allah would give them certain miracles. So it's mentioned about this man, that instead of riding on a horse, what would he ride on? He would ride on a lion. That was his conveyance. So he comes on his lion, rough looking man, nothing of the dunya, and he comes to the house of this alim, and what does he see? MashaAllah, huge house, everything is so nice. The alim comes out smiling, very, very nice clothing. And the ascetic says, this is the guy? Everybody's talking about him. Everybody's saying he's, such a person of the akhirah. Look at his clothes. Look at his house. And then he invites him inside and prepares the meal. He says, I'm fasting today. And subhanAllah, the alim is enjoying nice, luscious, delicious food. And nighttime comes. The ascetic is praying all night. But the alim, he prays a little bit and he sleeps. So the ascetic says, man, this guy is a phony person. He's false. All the praise that people are giving this guy, it's a false thing. He's not really, a person who has let go of the dunya. The dunya is in his heart. Look at how he's living. So finally, when nighttime came, the ascetic, he had his lion. So he's got to tie his lion up. Right? He's got to tie the lion up at night. So he asked the guy, where can I tie it? He asked the alim, where can I tie my lion for the night? He says, go over there in the stable and you can tie it right over there. When he goes to the stable, what does he see? There's a huge cow, which belongs to the alim. So he's got all this livestock as well. He says, listen, alim sahab, you have your cow here. My conveyance, it's a lion at the end of the day. So if we tie these animals up together, you're not going to see your cow in the morning. My lion is going to eat them up. He said, no, don't worry about that. I already thought about it. Just go ahead and tie them up and we'll see about this tomorrow. So when the morning time came, what did they see? MashaAllah, the cow gained a few pounds and there's no sign of the lion. Lion disappeared and the cow is, MashaAllah, tagra, he gained some weight and the cow is standing there. He said, what happened? I had a lion and it looks like cows are supposed to be eating grass and grain. It looks like your cow ate my lion. What is the matter here? What's going on? So the alim, he explained to him that my inner sifat, my cow has my condition. And your lion has your inner condition. And what I mean by this is that you are a person of outward show. Your coarse clothing, you're, not eating food. Outwardly, you show that dunya means nothing to you. You're riding on this ferocious lion. But deep down within your heart, the love of dunya is there. So your lion resembles your character. That on the outside it looks ferocious, but on the inside, what is the reality of your lion? There's nothing inside of your lion. It's all just a show. And my cow, his internal resembles what I have in my internal. On the outside, I have money, I have luxury, I have food, I have all these things. But in my heart, this means nothing to me. This is nothing to me. My heart is always in the akhirah. If I have this today and I lose it tomorrow, my heart will not be saddened in the least. My heart will not pain. My heart will not grieve. When Allah gives it to me, I thank Him. And if Allah takes it from me, I will say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and I'll continue with my life happily. So the cow resembles me. On the outside, it's got all of the luxuries, but on the inside, he's very strong, he's very disciplined, and his heart is protected. And that's why my cow ate your lion, and this morning, what do we see? There's no sign of the lion. All you see is my cow here, nice and plump, he's sitting there. So inshallah, this is how it is for us in the dunya. Don't be plump, don't eat to the point that your belly will get big, but you can engage in dunya, you can earn of this dunya, just don't let it enter a person's heart. And live for the akhirah like every day is your last. When a person does this, inshallah, we will find success. May Allah grant us all the tawfiq. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.